Yeah, so I'm Joel Edwards. I'm the International Director for Micah Challenge. And Micah Challenge is a global Christian response to extreme poverty. A really exciting thing happened in the year 2000 when 189 nations basically signed up to the idea that we would reduce extreme poverty by 50% by the year 2015. So a small number of us Christians got together and said, what should we really be doing about that? Given that this was under the auspices of the United Nations, we could run a mile, we could pray against it, we could get involved. And we thought, well, this is fantastic. Supposing Christians, East, West, North, South, rich, poor nations, became involved in two things. One is continuing to deepen our commitment to the poor, sponsoring the child, digging the well, building the hospitals, building the schools, all of those very important caring initiatives. But supposing Christians get together and actually say to governments, you've made some promises to the poor, we expect you to keep those promises, the poor expect those promises to be kept, and God expects those promises to be kept. That kind of advocacy became the backbone of what Micah Challenge is all about. So in 40 different nations we have coalitions, but we have the privilege as well of working with a whole range of denominations and movements across the world to do advocacy around extreme poverty.
And so what is the Jesus Agenda then?
Well, Jesus Agenda has been a very exciting initiative to try to put some accessible, educational and hopefully inspirational materials in the hands of the church. Our real passion is to take the idea of advocacy around complicated and global promises away from just being kind of a specialist policy egghead activity and say this belongs in the heart of the church. And so Jesus Agenda has been just a fascinating partnership between Christian Aid and Compassion and Micah Challenge to try and ask, what did Jesus really mean in Luke chapter 4 when he said the Spirit of God is on him to preach good news to the poor, to open the blind eyes, to set the oppressed free, to bring in the acceptable ear of the Lord. What did he really mean, and how does this relate to a biblical understanding of advocacy? So the Jesus Agenda got us to talk to people in 4 continents, from the world of politics, relief and development, church leadership, those doing the stuff on the ground, in places like Latin America and Washington and New York and London and Nigeria, and to ask some of these profound questions around Luke 4, the Jesus Manifesto, if you like. And so in 3 programs around power, around proclamation, around the idea of promise, we're really raising educational questions which we hope will motivate and mobilize hundreds of thousands of Christians to take biblical advocacy more seriously. We're very, very excited about the potential.
So on any of your trips, we work in Peru, so did you get to see any of Compassion's work in Peru?
Yeah, we saw a couple of the work which you're doing largely with local churches, and actually to get an opportunity to see local pastors working with local children to do holistic education was very exciting. And so one of the privileges we had was being on the ground to see the work at close quarters, as well as to hear from people like Scott Todd about a real compassion, a real commitment rather to see advocacy being taken seriously by the Christian church.
So how did the partnership with Compassion come about? Why has that been something that you've been interested in?
Well, I think we've been huge admirers of Compassion's work, and one of the things which we find, 2 things I find really very attractive about Compassion. First of all, is your very clear commitment to gospel values. It's right up there in your face. This is a Christian organization following gospel principles and seeing holistic development of children. That's been really good. But the second thing which we found extremely attractive was and is your commitment to working with the local church. That's a real big bonus for us as well, because we also want to go right to the heart of the church and taking the issue of advocacy to Christians at a local level. And so a conversation with Scott Todd some 3 years or so ago very similar to the time we were having conversations with Christian Aid, brought together this partnership. And I guess it was a combination of visions which were running together, relationships committed to the same outcomes and objectives, which gave the combination of relationships around this partnership, which we're enjoying.
So a lot of people would look at the situation of extreme poverty and just see how big and all-encompassing it seems to be around the world. A lot of people would ask the question, what can I really do to help? What would you say to someone who has that kind of question?
You know, I think the amazing thing about where we are now is that nobody has to feel overwhelmed by the complexity and the enormity of the task. And I think a very important indicator of what should I do to help starts with where you're at as an individual. What's on your heart? What makes you mad? What makes you sad? What provokes you to pray or to give? Is it children? Is it something around people being trafficked? Is it something to do with your own passion to see children educated? And I think for each of us, we start there. What is it which I feel passionate about? And then somewhere, someone is going to be able to help you to translate that into action. There is a Christian organization, there is a ministry somewhere which helps you to pursue your passion about justice. And it gives you a chance not to be against injustice, but actually to be for justice and to do something positive. To start where you are, what's your passion, what's eating you up? And then why don't you get on the website? I mean, I could mention loads of names, but I won't just at this point. Get on the website and find out who's doing what you're concerned about, and that's your passport to practical activity and involvement. So the Jesus Agenda is a 9-week Bible course, basically designed for individual Christians, more specific Christians in church groups, study groups. And we hope it will also be available to people in academic places like our Bible colleges and so on. And it takes us through 9 weeks of, we hope, rigorous, engaging Bible study around the issue of advocacy. And it seeks to explore, perhaps more than explain details, but we hope it takes you through a very educational and motivational 9 weeks of training and education.